Guest-free selling, 4 building blocks for creating effective training programs, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Scott Messer. Today's webinar will last approximately 1 hour. Before we begin, note you can submit any questions you have using the window chat area on your control panel. This is usually located in the upper right corner of your screen. We will answer questions as they come in live with Scott at the end of the presentation or as follow-up by email. My name is Sarah Schaefer, and I will be moderating today's webinar. An accomplished author and founder of Sales Evolution, Scott Messer's career as a business development professional and entrepreneur has spanned more than 25 years. Before creating Sales Evolution, Scott was the president of Sales and Marketing Executives International, an organization dedicated to promoting the professional standing of the sales vocation through education. Thank you for joining us today, Scott.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Messer from Sales Evolution. You've chosen to spend the next hour on this topic, 4 building blocks to create effective training programs. So in order to make this the best use of your time, when you signed up for this program, what did you read or hear or think that made you think spending this hour on the topic would be the most effective use of your time? What is it you're hoping to learn? What is it the challenges that you're dealing with relative to your attendees buying into the training programs that you're putting together? Today's program is for you, not for me. So to best engage, if you have any particular questions or issues that led you to dial in today, please type them in and send them to Sarah, and she'll pass them along to me. I don't know that I'll get to them all as you're a big audience, but to the extent they can be answered, they will be answered. So thanks for your help on that. To get started, you may be wondering what qualifies a sales coach and trainer to even speak on this topic. That is to say, the things you're dealing with on the HR side of the table. The answer is simple. Getting people to buy into your programming is a sales job. It's an internal sales job, but a sales job nonetheless. Additionally, as someone who trains and speaks at dozens of sessions per year, I know the difference in impact that HR can make in turning a program into a good program or having it, well, not so good, and how to set the stage up front to make it work. Another way of putting it is I'm doing this for my own self-protection, because when you set the stage properly, my job is a lot easier. And there it goes. Okay. Our focus today is on how to create effective training events that have a lasting effect. How to keep the training binder open on the desk, not collecting dust on the shelf. You're educated, top HR professionals and managers responsible for the training programs inside your organization, and you do a good job. You know a lot. You're obviously very competent at putting these things on. So as this program progresses, you're going to say to yourself, often I'm sure, oh, I knew that, or that's obvious. And no doubt much of what we're going to talk about is a glaring statement of obvious. Fair enough. But are you actually doing the things that you know? Perhaps the bigger question is not do you know what to do, but what are you going to do? What changes do you need to make to get a bigger impact and better effect in your program? You're on the call today because you're motivated. You want something better. You're committed to a better outcome. But at the end, it comes down to your accountability that you're actually going to make these changes that we're going to be talking about today. Is that fair enough? Good. Finally, most of what is going to happen on this call is my posing questions that you have to answer, as opposed to my sharing magic tricks or secrets that bring about miraculous results and changes. After all, we've only got about 45 minutes of program time, and not a lot can be achieved really beyond providing a framework for action, your action. So with that behind us, let's dig in. Let's get into the meat of today's program. one of the top complaints I hear about just about all training programs is that it is difficult getting buy-in from the participants. Is that true? I think most employees want to learn, but they hate learning events that they feel are wasting their time. Could it be that your teams really want to improve their skills, but they don't want to learn the way you're teaching them? In order to get them on board, there are 4 building blocks to create effective training programs. The 4 building blocks are trust, outcomes, solutions, and value. At the core, it starts with trust. Trust comes from a person believing that you are looking out for them and protecting them, that you are putting their interests first, ahead of your own. In training, that means creating the certainty of them achieving an outcome they desire. The higher the degree of certainty you create, the higher the belief that they have in you and the program. The higher the belief, the higher their trust in you. We're going to talk about that in some detail. This may sound familiar to most of you. There are 3 kinds of participants in training programs. True learners, whom we love. They're the people that get it, that want to improve, that are going to be there early, that are just excited about the gift that you're giving them of education. They recognize you're investing in them, and they love that. The second group are the campers. They believe they already know most of what's being trained, whatever the topic, and they're looking for things that validate what they already know and do. Plus, being in a training program is better or more fun than doing their day job. And finally, prisoners. These are the folks who don't want to be in this program and usually let everyone know it before, during, and after the program. These folks are very dangerous because they can bring an entire program down. As mentioned earlier, this is a sales job, and the best sales jobs are good conversation. In order to build trust, participants and stakeholders need to be engaged in a conversation that get these prisoners to actively participate. I think that, interestingly enough, if you give them permission to opt out of a program, which we'll talk about more later, few will take you up on it, and this is a way you can engage the prisoners to get the behavior that you want. At the end of it, everybody's going to show up because they have to. But will they implement or use the knowledge after they walk out if they don't believe you have their interest at heart? Have you helped them understand or believe that the program fits into their own requirements and desired outcomes? No? Well, then don't expect them to buy in and think that your trainer is going to convert them over. It's just too hard. The work's got to be done up front. Meaningful trainings are relevant to what's going on in the company, and they require a number of things that have to be established before the program starts. These are all things you can do, and it starts with top-down compliance. Top-down compliance means this. You've got the CEO and other appropriate managers on board. The leadership says, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And they are committed to that end. It isn't another check-the-box HR program, and my apologies, guys, but you know what I'm talking about. They are out there. Instead, leadership is serious and involved. The hard part about this is the time element for the leadership. Like you, they're busy people, and often they want to stay above the fray and leave the details to you. And that's all well and good. But their personal intervention makes a huge difference. Think about some of the most successful programs you have put on. Did they not include senior leadership being committed to the end? Of course they did. Get on their calendar and help them help you. Because while you have the authority for putting on these programs, they're actually responsible for bigger corporate goals and compliance. And these are the programs, ostensibly, that lead to that happy end. They're sharing the roadmap, or the why is important. People work for a cause, and knowing where the company is going and how each program you are putting on fits into the big picture is massive, massive important. Second, can you find an internal champion or champions who are willing to spend their political capital promoting and talking about the importance of the event? Can you get them to help you generate interest and explain the importance of the program? I find that my business, which is almost exclusively referral-based, is so much easier because my clients are telling my prospects about how great we are. It's a lot more powerful coming from them than it is from me. And likewise, if you can find some internal champions to talk up these programs, perhaps they are directly impacted by the success or failure of it, or simply have an interest in the subject matter. Find them, arm them with information, and send them out to begin to build some excitement and buzz about the upcoming program. Again, coming from a disinterested third party is a lot better than coming from you. Third, come up with a creative title for the class. Just as with emails that have a clever subject line and get your attention, a clever or creative title to engage participants can be effective. Maybe you can type in a few that you've heard of. How about for a sales training program, Stop Closing Sales? Or here's one for the customer service folks. Customer service or customer disservice? Sexual harassment. Well, I'm not touching that one. Pun intended, etc. Again, it would be interesting to see what some of the ones you might come up with for some of the programs that you're putting on, or some of the ones that you've seen out there. Fourth, and perhaps most important if you can do it, as I referenced earlier, engage the prisoners before the training. Depending on the size of your organization, you either already know who they are or their manager knows who they are. Unless it's a mandatory program, such as a sexual harassment or some other program like that, I suggest that you give potential prisoners permission to opt out of the training program. Yeah, you heard it right. Let them out if they don't want to be there or they're not going to play nice. They rarely opt out. And once they commit to the program, you can reinforce the behavior and kind of participation you expect before the program starts. You know, I suggest this to all my CEO and VPs of sales clients, and they're usually surprised when I suggest it. In fact, I've had a couple of them say, well, if they opt out, that's political suicide. And I say, yeah, I know, but don't you want to know who those folks are? And don't you? And by weeding out the prisoners, your presenter will thank you. Trust me, I know. Isn't this the big question? Will they implement or use what they just learned when the program ends and they walk out of the room, or not? And as long as the reasons behind the program are yours, not theirs, there's a good chance they won't implement it. Additionally, and this may be a tough one for you all to accept, as you often don't have the control after the training, but without satisfactory follow-up after the session, don't expect much in the way of results. One-and-done training, and you've heard it 100 times, doesn't work. It just doesn't stick the way you want it to stick. But what are you doing about it? Without the follow-up and reinforcement of the new skills, the end result is predictable. A couple people will have picked up a nugget along the way or a magic trick that they liked, and they'll start doing that, and they'll think they got great benefit from the program. But the other 99% of the people and the other 99% of the content just isn't going to be put into place. Everybody just naturally reverts back to their own hardwired behavior. Now, the good news is that making the training stick isn't as much your responsibility as it is the executive or management stakeholders who oversee the group that just got trained. For hard skill training, say an accounting package or other heavily used software programs, the users are continually working on them, revisiting their skills, and through practice and repetition, gain confidence and competence. But what about soft skills training? How do you ensure what was taught gets revisited, practiced, and implemented? That's a lot more difficult. Here's the hard truth. Training is easy. Implementation is hard. As I like to say, any fool can train. Getting people to implement, that's hard work. And so you have to ask yourself, are you sacrificing efficiency, that is to say, putting on a program, arranging for the people to come in, getting them out, for effectiveness? Efficiency is easy. Effectiveness is going to be hard. And again, I'm sure you've all seen it in your programs and in programming. It really is not easy to get people to continue to use what you're giving them once it's all over. On slides. There we go. Outcome. Effectiveness comes down to the personal, emotional goal and outcome. This is what number 2. The executive sponsors seek from the training and tying it to the outcome the participants want as well. What specifically are outcomes? Well, they come in different shapes and sizes and are personal to each person involved. Sometimes they're looking for a positive outcome, such as trying to reach a goal, achieve a priority, affect some sort of positive change, or instill a program designed to take the company to another level. Those are examples of positive outcomes. Other times, they can be in response to a negative, such as there's a particular concern or issue that needs addressed, there's a particular pain, or just solving a business problem. Perhaps the best example I can give is that the CEOs, VPs of sales, etc., HR directors that hire me in the sales evolution team aren't interested in sales training and coaching for the sake of sales training and coaching. They're usually looking for an outcome such as one of these things. They don't want to get fired. They want to earn their bonus for hitting the sales bogey for the first time in years. They want the yelling to stop that they're hearing from the president or CEO about sales issues. Maybe there's a conflict going on between customer service and sales, or sales and marketing, or all three groups, or there are silos over those three groups instead of tents where they're all working together. Sometimes it's a family-owned business, and they're looking to ensure survival for the next generation. I mean, what business owner doesn't want to bring their kids into the business? If an owner or shareholder is close to retirement, it can be to ensure a good sale of the company because sales are better, or generate more income so they actually can retire on time. And one of the ones that you may relate to better than some of the others is that, and this is true, sometimes there are family issues involved. Maybe because of a problem at work, somebody's had to work overtime 3 weekends in a row, and they've missed the kids' soccer games, and their spouse is unhappy about it. These aren't data points. These are personal, emotional drivers that lead people to make decisions to change. Does your sales training lead to those desired emotional ends? If so, you're doing a good job. If not, well, not so much. I'll even put it in a different frame. people do things for their reasons, not your reason. And ask yourself this question. When people look at their calendar and they see that they're scheduled to go into a training program, even ask yourself when you see yourself scheduled to go into a training program, although I would imagine you're better than most, are they saying to themselves, oh man, I can't believe I have to, oh gosh, it's going to be a whole day out of the field or away from my desk, who's going to do the work, total waste of time, I can't believe they're making me do this. And of course, when they walk in with that kind of mental attitude, they're merely punching the clock. Let's be honest. They're looking at their watch the whole time, and they can't wait until it's over. That's one scenario. The next scenario is they understand why they're there. They understand how it relates to them and their job. It relates to outcomes that they're seeking, and they're going to be active participants in the program. You know, that's where we want to go. But ask yourself, if now, on a percentage basis, you've got even 10% of people that go into training programs, or 20%, let's be kind, let's be charitable, that are going in with that latter attitude as opposed to the former attitude. And that's pretty expensive. And I think we can all agree on that. So going back to the example of what the stakeholders want relative to sales training, the no arguments with their spouse, the getting their kids into the business, those sorts of things. Can we agree that those things are personal? I think we can. See, nobody wants the sales training. They want what it gives them. The training and coaching are free. It's the items on that list that I read off are the kinds of things that have value that people buy. And so it is with every program you offer. What are the outcomes your executive sponsors want from the training program? What are the outcomes that participants want from the training program? Your job as the Chief Learning Officer inside your company is to uncover everyone's desired outcome and deliver a solution to them, not a training program. As I like to say, the training and coaching is free. What we charge for are the outcomes that our stakeholders are buying. They're not buying training. They're not buying coaching. They're buying outcomes that are personal to them. And regrettably, your presenter's genius is not enough. I mean, you've decided you're going to put on a program, you went out, and you found the best person for the job that you could find. They had credentials, they had references, heck, they even had great YouTube videos. But they missed the mark with the team. How could that happen? And what kind of a mess did that create internally? And what kind of credibility issues did it create for you and the executive sponsor? Has this ever happened to you? Wouldn't be surprised if it has. And what was the fallout or the blowback on you for not delivering the results that you had no control over? Because there was no ongoing follow-up and reinforcement. That logically brings us to the third building block, the solution. And there's a great expression. I love this one. Prescription before diagnosis is malpractice in medicine, and it's malpractice in training. Only after everybody's desired outcomes are known can you really craft the right solution for the stakeholders in the audience. It's not a question of offering up a smorgasbord of services, but offering actually those that connect with the audience within the scope of their articulated goals and outcomes, the things that they want, not the things you want. Have you ever heard this? The program was what I asked for, but it wasn't what I wanted. I sold software for a lot of years, and I would periodically hear that. And by the way, that was my fault, not the customers, because sometimes what they're talking about, what they're asking about, is merely the symptom, and you address the symptom as opposed to going deeper and addressing the cause. So make sure that you know what they are really looking to do before you prescribe a solution for it. You know, to put it differently, in order for a solution to be accepted, it has to be in concert with everybody's dream outcome, whatever it may be. And remember, they're different for every individual stakeholder, so you need to discover them all. But let's face it, it's not too hard to sell somebody back their own dream. The thing is, you have to discover what it is first. On the other hand, how difficult is it to sell somebody your dream? It is significantly much harder. And you are not in the convincing business. You're in the business of having the right kinds of conversations with people where they trust you and they self-discover that what you're looking to do is in their interest and helps them accomplish what they're looking to do. Is this making sense? I hope it is. Block number 3 is value. Once a training program is over, what did the executive sponsor and participants gain? That's an important question. Was value received for the expense? And be careful, because this is a bit of a trick question. Because, as you know, there are many expenses that happen when you're putting on a great program. And depending on the size and nature of your company, they can include the value of employee wages and commissions that are spent from having these folks out of the field or away from their desk. There can be hotels, plane tickets, rental cars, and meal expenses. Presenters usually don't come for free either. What about opportunity cost? And the biggest cost, the biggest expense of all, doesn't even show up in the accounting. I'm going to pause and count to 3. Think about for a moment what the biggest expense of all is, and it's not a dollars and cents expense. It's the expense of political capital. Yep, because somebody has said, we need to do this program. It's going to deliver good results for us. Other people bought in, and then on top of it all, even if you were right about that, you've got to bring in a presenter that's going to resonate with the entire group. That, value is more than money. The big question from your stakeholders' perspective is, what did I get from the program? What did I gain? And when speaking to folks like you or the CEOs I work with, this is the point I emphasize, that as much as those other things cost, the hotels, the hourly rate of having 25 people in a room, I mean, how many thousands of dollars per hour is that by itself, right? Okay? As much as all those other things cost, they pale to the political risk if the program isn't successful. And I see a lot of heads nodding out there over the internet. Why? Has this happened to you? I mean, you put on a program that, well, to be charitable, let's say you laid an egg with it and the blowback went on you. There's a big difference between the CEO or president coming down to your office and saying they heard things went great in the training, good job, thank you very much, as opposed to, where in the heck did you find that presenter? What were you thinking? You never want to see that guy or gal in the building again. It's a big deal, isn't it? And it reflects and relates directly back on you. It's your political capital as much as anybody else's that's on the line here. So you've got to make sure that value is delivered. So how do you measure the actual impact of an event? Well, results can be measured a lot of different ways: dollars, efficiencies, resolution of a problem, achievement of a dream, installing new processes, increasing input or output. But whatever the value is, they, meaning your stakeholders, meaning the attendees, have to determine the value, not you. Stay away from providing ROI, or return on investment, because the sound of their voice and reasonableness of their calculation is much more powerful than your own. Looking at it a little bit differently, look at it this way. The last time you bought something where the salesperson or influencer told you that the ROI was going to be whatever it was they told you, has it ever been accurate? Was it anywhere near accurate? And I'm hearing your laughter over the internet. Of course not. ROIs that are given by others are rarely accurate. Therefore, internally, when you promote an ROI, the executive is not likely to believe you either. It's not you they don't believe. They've just never heard one that was anywhere near to what they heard it was going to be. And besides, ROI is more about price than cost. The difference being that price is dollars and cost can be many things. And this relates back to the previous slides where we were talking about discovering their dreams and then selling them back their own dreams. What's the value of achieving anybody's dream? Usually a lot more than the price spent to achieve it. As the expression goes, no one will spend $500 to fix a $100 problem, but they'll spend $1 million to fix a $10 million problem. And frankly, dreams usually fall into the $10 million category. You build trust by demonstrating an understanding of everybody's dream outcome. You put together the best training solution to achieve those dreams, and the value will be realized. To summarize, to oversee a successful training program, keep your discussions with all the stakeholders focused on strengthening each relationship with them within these 4 building blocks: trust, outcomes, solution, and value. These are the drivers for ensuring that each and every one of your programs has the best internal sponsorship, the most enthusiastic participants, and the greatest, and I think this is the most important, frankly, the greatest impact post-training. Again, it's not hard to train. That's easy. Implementation is the key. And right now, where we see most people falling down is on the post-training experience. Imagine a scenario where you worked hard to strengthen the relationship and create a sense of certainty of outcome with all the folks, all the stakeholders involved in the training using these building blocks. And you set expectations on what happens before, during, and maybe most importantly, after the training event. What does the picture look like compared to what you're experiencing now? I would think it looks a lot better. It's hard to do. You've got to engage. The best sales calls are good conversations, be it an internal sales conversation, selling up the organization, or selling your programs down the organization. It all starts with a conversation centered on trust. So I'm glad to help anyone with any questions regarding today's discussion, and I'll leave my contact information up for a moment to allow you to take it down. I don't see my phone number on there, so if anybody's interested in having a chat about what we talked about today, please feel free to reach out to me. It's my way of saying thank you to you. The number is 610-353-8686, and my email is Scott, S-C-O-T-T, at salesevolution.com. I'll spend as much time as we need to talking about some of the issues and problems and challenges you're facing on putting out good training programs that engage people. And by the way, it's coming to the time of year when a lot of you may be looking at sales implementation, training or coaching programs for the new year, and I'm glad to talk to you about that as well. But that's not the purpose of making the offer for you to call. It's to help you with the things we talked about today. So thank you very much. I certainly enjoyed the time. Sarah, I'm going to flip it back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Scott. And we do actually have some time for your questions. So attendees, please send them in now. And actually, while we wait for those questions, let me tell you a little bit more about Scott's book. The book is called The Outcome, A Novel Approach to Selling, follows Jane's 7-day saga, negotiating millions in business agreements, all while struggling with her role in the tragedy and the questions it invokes about her work, her career, and the nature of human doubt. Sales professionals and business owners will find the book useful for the powerful lessons about selling and business development rooted in this story. And then also, if you would like to check us out, please visit HRDQ-U.com, and there you can register for our webinar Wednesdays, as well as connect with us on social media. And don't forget, you can also use your special offer you receive by email after our session to shop at HRDQstore.com. Okay, and it looks like there are some questions coming in now, so why don't we get started? Our first question is from Dan. What is a good resource for identifying good trainers and presenters?
Dan, thank you for joining us today. That's an excellent question. Frankly, I think word of mouth is probably the best. I don't know, of course, what your specific business or industry is about, but talk to some of the folks at the associations that cater to your industry, or other folks that you know that have used that type of person before. That gives you an ability to collect a couple of names. If you're a LinkedIn person and belong to any groups, that's not a bad place to post the question either. Who do you know? Who do you recommend? And at that point, you'll collect a ton of names. You can do your research and identify a good person for your event. Thank you.
All right, great. And our next question is from Mary. You're a sales trainer. Why doesn't one-and-done training work?
Great question. To give a simple and to-the-point answer, I will just say that sales in particular, probably more than anything else, is not so much about process as it is about the relationship that we all have with ourselves. And doubt comes stronger to salespeople than anybody else. As I like to say, there are two sides to relationship management. The relationship first between you and your prospect, but the second and most difficult relationship is the relationship that you have with yourself. And frankly, if it could be taught, if anything could be taught in a one-and-done scenario, everybody would be great at sales. Everybody would be great at everything. Ask yourself, the last training program or two that you had, if it was one and done, what kind of lasting impact did it have without the reinforcement? I mean, there's the answer right there. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And oh, this is a good one. Tony asks, say your sales team is out there on an island. How do we get them back on the reservation?
Well, that question can have a couple of different interpretations. So I'm going to speak to the one that I hope you are referencing, and that is, oh gosh, you know, there's no I in team. You know, how schlocky is that? But, you know, people need to be working to a common good as well as their individual good. They need to recognize that the greater good is important to their own success. I often get calls from sales managers or VPs of sales. They have a terrific business developer, but he or she is causing problems inside the organization. They're riding roughshod over customer service, or they hit their number every year, but they don't make the right amount of calls to develop new business. They're just milking their existing accounts. There's any number of those kinds of issues, and it really comes down to a longer answer than I really can give in a webinar. But again, that's a great one to call me about and talk about afterwards. And again, I'm glad to do it as a thank you to you guys for sitting in today.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your sales knowledge with us today.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Any other questions?
None right now. If there will be any after, we will always email you the response.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for hosting me today, and thank everybody for sitting in and listening. I hope you got some good benefit out of it. And again, it's easy to want better results. It's easy to say you're going to do it, but actually doing it is the hard work. And I hope you got some tips here that will enable you to do it. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time, and we hope you found today's webinar informative.